no doubt in my mind there will be an attempt at a referendum in Valparaiso. I don't know if that'll be a capital referendum along with a general fund referendum.
Both at the same time?
It could be two of them at one time. The board requested to put together about 9 months of discussion on the topic, and that's what we did. So we're currently involved in public meetings with the community talking about both of those referendums, a capital for the buildings as well as a general fund referendum. Much of that general fund referendum is back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of positions that have been cut over time, as well as positions that we've identified that would service kids better, that may not have existed before. So we're in those discussions now. Probably at the earliest, a spring of 2015 referendum might occur, and at the outside, the spring of 2016. So that's where we're at in Valparaiso.
Public school funds are diluted and dispersed to vouchers as schools lose students to charter schools in a proportion that you cannot balance your staff costs with loss of students. You lose 100 kids spread out over 6 grades and 5 kids. That's $500,000 but you can't reduce $500,000 worth of staff because you need them for this, because it only affects 2 kids to a classroom, perhaps. That trend to say, okay, local communities, you come up with the money that the schools are losing from the state. I think the question still needs to be answered, is that going to become disproportionate to the wealth of the community? The poorer the community is, what are the chances of passing a referendum versus with a low-income community versus a high-income community? So what other disadvantages are they going to have? Will factors related to poverty come into play even more so in terms of being able to maintain the programs and funds that are needed to improve schools?
The attack on the capital projects fund, we can't even maintain our buildings anymore. That's been cut more than in half. Munster's capital projects fund's gone from $3 million to $1.3 million. That's money that's drastically needed to maintain our buildings. Transportation, there's a full-blown assault on that. We're supposed to be able to replace buses that are 12 years old. I submitted the plan to the Department of Local Government Finance to replace 12 buses, all of which were going to be 12 years old. And in the past, we can show the need, we can get approved for that tax levy. We got enough money to buy less than 1 bus. That's going to become a safety issue. It's incredible, the assault on other funds, even in the general fund. The state of Indiana doesn't discriminate against anybody. If you don't have the high assessed value, they get you, like George has pointed out with the capital projects. If you have a high assessed value, then you're rewarded by getting no money per pupil for your general fund. So there are no winners in this whole state of what they do. If you have the low assessed valuation, you don't have access to the common school loans that you need. If you have a higher assessed valuation, they reward you by not funding your general fund, and the state is the source of funds. None of us are in good. There are no haves and have-nots in Indiana. In public schools, we're all have-nots in this administration.
In any community, but especially in a small community like Hebron, you split your community, and the fact that the legislature is not funding your schools, you have to go out, in our case, 2 years in a row with hat in hand. And in this latest case, this latest referendum, we doubled the number of voters. But when it's all said and done, you've created so many enemies in your community that it takes years to get over that. And it's needless. It's not necessary if we were funded correctly. And you know, that animosity among people is going to last a long time. and it's unfortunate that we have to do this.
So people are interested in the public education. The patrons are sick and tired of the dilution of public funding. You know, the wherewithal is there in the state. Why would we carry a $2 billion surplus and shortchange our public schools? It makes no sense.
Very good.
I don't see a referendum ever happening. When you have your free and reduced rate at somewhere between 75 and 80%, it's just not going to happen. Coupled with that, which we haven't spoken of yet, is just that our tax collection in itself is hovering around 75%. So there comes a time at some point where you just can't function with that low of collection and trying to go out to your community and ask for additional help. I just don't see it happening in a community like Lake Station.
We've done exactly what we've had to do in order to maintain as much as we possibly can. But you get to the point where, okay, the only way of getting additional funding is to go to local referendums. And I think when the state took over the general fund from school corporations, they knew that. They knew that they were not going to fund public education over a specific amount of money. And if you wanted anything else, you would have to go to your local taxpayers on referendums to get that additional money. And if the state wants to take over 100% of the general fund, then it's the state that has to adequately fund education. They took on that responsibility. Why don't they meet their responsibility?